Okay, you're unmuted.
I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Milton Board of Zoning Appeals for September 18th, 2018. And before we moved into tonight's agenda, I'm going to make a motion to amend tonight's agenda and look for a second of that. My amendments would start with a call to order, which we just did. Board member roll call would be item number 2. Item number 3 would be Pledge of Allegiance. Item number 4 would be approval of our minutes. Item number 5 would be offering a general public comment period. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? I would offer the city manager is looking to make some consistent adjustments for all the boards to offer a general public comment period in each of the board and or city council meetings. So that's the material change that I introduced.
I just ask, is the general comment not related to anything that's on tonight's agenda?
It could be. It could be as it's noted, and I'll read what was provided to me by.
Okay.
Public comment is a time for citizens to share information and to provide input and opinions during today's meeting. Each citizen who chooses to participate in public comment must complete a yellow comment card and submit it to the city staff. Please remember that public comment is not a time to engage the board members directly. When your name is announced, please come forward to the podium or microphone, announce your name and address for the record. You will have 5 minutes for individual remarks.
That's fine for this evening because we are effectively doing the one agenda item that I was going to make a note of, and that is to adopt or amend the agenda as a going forward. That should be a standard agenda item, typically near the front,
right?
Just as something to. We're effectively doing that by your motion at this point in time for tonight's meeting. But if we go forward, something to bear in mind as the standard practice.
Okay, yeah, I struck that, noting that that's the actual activity that I was doing tonight. Any further discussion? I'll reiterate the changes. We'll start with call to order, which we just did. Board member roll call. Item number 3 would be the Pledge of Allegiance. Number 4 would be approval of prior month's meeting minutes. Item number 5 would be general public comment. All those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed? The amended agenda for tonight has been approved unanimously. I'll move on to then item number 2, which is our roll call. As I call roll, please confirm your attendance. Ken Sisson, not present. Jason Cole.
Here.
Don Kurt, not present. Brenda Hampstead.
Present.
Kim Keller.
Here.
Haj Patel.
Present.
And I'm the chair, Todd Chernick, present. Item number 3 on our agenda, please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 4 is approval of our prior month's meeting minutes. I make a motion to approve the August meeting minutes as published.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion regarding the August meeting minutes? They're available on the website.
Yes.
All those in favor and who attended say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And we have one abstention, Jason Cole, who was not on the board in August.
And I was not there.
So we have 2 abstain, 3 voting in favor. Motion passed. Item number 5, public comment, and this is general public comment. Is there any public comment tonight? Hearing and seeing no public comment, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which would be consideration of primary variances on tonight's agenda. Before I do that, I would like to read into the record, the Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial board comprised of resident volunteers of the city of Milton. The board is charged with hearing requests for variances from the standards of the zoning ordinance and appeals of administrative determination. With regard to decisions on primary variances, the board's basis for decision is provided by these four considerations. A, relief if granted would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. And B, there are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. And C, relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. And D, that the public safety, health, and welfare are secured and that substantial justice is done. We'll move to the first case for this evening is V18-005, 3505 Bethany Bend. Would staff please present?
Mr. Chair, for V18-005, staff would like to request a deferral in this case. We continue to work with the applicant to finalize his plans for his new monument sign. We had to have some survey work done to find out exactly where it needed to be placed. And so we've done that, and hopefully he should be able to present his case at next month's meeting.
Okay. Are there any questions of staff for the recommended deferral? Make a motion to defer V18-005 till the next scheduled Board of Zoning meeting.
Second.
And we have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion to defer passed unanimous. The next item on our agenda is V18-007, 790 Landrum Road.
Mr. Chair, for this case, V18-007, staff would like to also request a deferment until next month. The applicant has decided to concentrate on some work on the main part of the house right now, and we've just given her a little more time to make sure she doesn't want to do this variance so she doesn't have to reapply. But I anticipate that if there's no activity by next month, we'll just withdraw it.
Okay. Are there any questions of staff?
I've got a question.
Yes.
If they do withdraw their application, is there a time frame before they can resubmit?
No, it hasn't been heard, so there's no time frame that I know of.
I think if it's a denial.
Yeah.
Yes, if it's a denial, there is a freeze period. That was a good question. Any other questions for staff? I'll make a motion to defer V18-007 to the next scheduled Board of Zoning meeting.
Second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passed unanimous. Next item on our agenda, trust me, we're going to have some discussion tonight. V18-009, 175 Gladwin Ridge.
Yes, sir. So this was presented last month. This is a deferral for the board from last month, but I will quickly go over the report again for the record. The site is a 1.36 acre lot located in the Gladwin Ridge subdivision. It's zone AG1, is located in the rural Milton overlay. The subdivision was platted in 1987 prior to the requirement for 75-foot stream buffers. Actually, when this was platted, no stream was shown on the plat at all. It was only when the adjacent lot was developed that the stream was discovered. The owner proposes to build a 4,000 square foot single-family home on the property, which is now 90% covered by stream buffers. It is unbuildable without a variance. Section 2426-2 states that an additional 25-foot impervious surface is required in addition to the 50 feet of buffer adjacent to the stream. All impervious cover shall be prohibited in this setback. Since Mr. Gibson proposes a house that will encroach into the 75-foot impervious setback, a two-part variance is required. As requested by the BZA at last month's meeting, the applicant has revised the site plan to move the proposed house closer to the 25-foot setback. He has also removed all the disturbance from the 50-foot stream buffer. The proposed house will also meet the minimum size requirement for the homeowners association. You have the comments from the DRB from August. Stated the septic will be the hard part once the house is built. Make sure there's room for septic. They mentioned the 4,000 square foot house requirement for the HOA, and they suggested that the applicant talk to staff regarding the building placement and any retaining walls. There were no comments from staff. And I'll just go over the staff response for the standards for consideration. The intent of the ordinance is to protect the health of our streams. The applicant has modified the site plan to limit the amount of disturbance in the 75-foot impervious setback and has removed all encroachments into the 50-foot buffer. The subdivision was platted before the requirement for the 75-foot stream buffers went into effect, and the stream was not shown on the plat at all. In this case, circumstances on the ground changed, not due to the fault of the owner, which now must be addressed. We feel this proposal minimizes the impact on the rest of the neighborhood. For example, one proposal called for an encroachment into the 60-foot front setback, while another proposed encroaching into the 25-foot side setback. This proposal limits disturbance to the 75-foot impervious setback for the house and the septic systems. Any water runoff into the impervious setback can be mitigated by proper drainage systems and vegetation. Through limiting the encroachment and proper mitigation, the public safety, health, and welfare will be secured. Should the board choose to approve this application, staff recommends the following conditions. A planning plan is to be approved by the city arborist. Shall provide a mitigation plan for runoff caused by the house in the 75-foot impervious setback, and this will be done as part of the building permit. Approval per the site plan dated, actually that date might have changed. August 27th? I think that's what it is. And the city architect shall review and approve the plans for the house. Staff recommends approval with conditions of this request.
Are there any questions for staff before we invite the applicant?
Is he only wanting to use the lines? He's only wanting to put the lines in the setback, not the house? Am I looking at this correctly?
That's correct. The septic field.
And part of the primary and reserve septic are in the 75-foot impervious setback. Nothing is currently proposed for the 50-foot buffer.
So just so that, you know, I know it's a little hard to read, they are maintaining the house within the setbacks, the 60 and the 25 side.
That's what yeah, okay.
Oh, okay.
The septic is allowed to be in that setback area, just not in the buffer area.
Right, they're in the stream buffer.
Right.
And, yeah.
So he's in the 75-foot portion of the stream buffer, between the 50 and the 75.
Right.
Right. So
He's definitely not in the state water. He's not in the 25.
he's not in the 25, and his previous application last month, he was in the 50 partially, and the board asked him to shift everything over and not impose on the 25, and he was able to get that all in on this diagram. So this, but I know because of your first meeting, this particular application, when they platted this, the stream buffer wasn't on the plat at all.
Oh, I see.
And what happened was when they did the adjoining neighborhood, they came and they have to show all stream buffers within 200 feet of the extents of the neighborhood. So then they showed this as a stream buffer. So basically, this wasn't developed right away,
Gotcha.
and then they imposed the stream buffer, and now he's coming back in trying to place a building on there with the new stream buffer requirement. The HOA is also requiring in their documents that the building is 4,000 square feet of heated floor area. So he came back, he didn't have it at 4,000, the applicant agreed to make it 4,000 to meet that requirement. So this diagram is indicating that he would meet the 4,000. And then if he comes in, if it's approved, then one of the conditions is that when he comes in, I'd be reviewing it to make sure that it's within that 4,000 guideline.
Are there any other questions for staff? Okay.
I've got a question.
Yes.
Can we clarify the date? The site plan that we have in here, it looks like it says 8/23/2018.
I thought it was 27. 8/27/18.
Is the state water buffer, does that actually have water running through it, or is it dry?
There's a stream there.
There is a stream there, okay.
As our city architect pointed out, this case came before us last month, and I also noted there's some additional stream buffer considerations in addition to the 4 that I've already referenced that I want to read into the record before the applicant comes forward. In terms of stream buffer standards for consideration, there are 6 considerations for this board to keep in mind. Number 1, the shape, size, topography, slope, soils, vegetation, and other physical characteristics of the property. Number 2, the locations of all streams on the property, including along property boundaries. Number 3, the location and extent of the proposed buffer or setback intrusion. Number 4, whether alternative designs are possible which require less intrusion or no intrusion. Number 5, the long-term and construction water quality impacts of the proposed variance. And number 6, whether issuance of the variance is at least as protective of natural resources and the environment. So that's part of why this applicant has gone back and worked with staff to come up with some mitigation. We'll hear that tonight. With that, I'll ask the applicant to come forward and present. Please announce your name and address for the record.
William A. Gibson, 125 Cooks Crossing, Woodstock, Georgia, 30188. Real quick, I don't know if everybody has the recent plat. I don't know if
We do.
you do. You have the recent
Yes.
one. Okay, I made copies just in case. Okay. So again, as our previous meeting, we talked about maybe reducing the house a little bit, or at least moving it off that 50-foot line, which the surveyor did for me. She redesigned the house, made the footprint a little bit smaller, but we can still have the house right around 4,100 square feet. After talking to the architect, so that will be no problem fitting in with the neighborhood HOA. I haven't gone to them yet, but there's been no reason to until we get this approved, of course. But that will fit in. Everything else looks really good, other than approval of the variance. So everything has gone well, perked, etc. So just as soon as that's approved, if it is, and I'll go forward with the anything else that the board needs. Whatever we can do to protect the screens, silk fences. I think someone had mentioned something else that we could do, a few other measures we could take, and I'm all for that.
Okay. Are there any questions for the applicant?
Can I get one of your copies that you brought? I think they're a little larger. I think they're the same.
Are the soils suitable for the field lines that go in there?
They're not on here, I don't think. I do have.
Why don't you head back to the microphones because this is all recorded.
To answer your question, I had the Kendall and Associates come out. They did the level 3 soil test. They did the perk. Everything was good.
Okay.
And I do have that. I just don't have it with me. I did bring that last month, though, I believe. I think y'all saw that.
So what I've noted has changed from last month, and while you're here, I just want you to clarify. You've shifted the house closer to the side property line, away from the 50-foot stream buffer, so there's less concern of intrusion into the 50-foot undisturbed. You've moved the reserve septic out of the 50-foot stream buffer. It does still encroach into the 75-foot impervious, however, which is part of the variance request.
Okay.
And you've put in a footprint of this house representative of 4,100 square feet, which you feel would meet the HOA and your needs based on a final home site plan or design. Any other significant changes you want to highlight?
I did change it a little bit. We reduced the footprint to 1,900 square feet instead of 2,000. So that gave it, and most of the space went away from that line. I think we had talked before about moving it, and I think if we moved the house any more over, it would encroach into the reserve septic field, I believe you call it. So that, if you look at the new plan there, you can see it's, probably, I don't know what that is. I'm not an architect or a surveyor, but it's, another 10 or 15 feet away from that line. So that way there's a lot more room for error if someone's, when they're staking the home. But everyone I've talked to so far that, is involved says this should work with no problem.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant before I seek public comment?
What are they planning on doing as far as a planting plan? I know I guess they discussed that with you.
Planting of
Is that-
shrubs or trees?
It just says planting plan to be approved by the city arborist, or are there some restrictions
I
or
don't-
guidelines that they've given you?
I don't plan on disturbing any of that area. We're going to leave it as wooded as possible. We really don't want to go in and remove any more trees than we have to. I think that was one of the neighbors' concern because he's right next door to me. He was here. Doug Shepard was here 2 weeks or 2 visits before. It's been a couple of months back, the first visit that we had. But he was concerned about tree removal, and I think he was confused. He thought the house was going to come forward 25 feet toward the road, and he was concerned about that. But then after talking with him outside, he was okay with it. I don't plan on disturbing any of the trees on that side. The only area that we're going to disturb is just where the house will be. And so we'll be very respectful, of course. We don't want any problems with the stream there.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to make sure the applicant is aware that you wouldn't have any retaining walls on the property, right?
I don't
On
think
the
there will
50
be
and the
any
buffers?
Yeah. On that side, the way the design of the house will be, the drive will come in on the left side. All that would be a basement wall that you see there, so it really wouldn't be a retention wall.
Okay, because just the cross-section of the slope, I mean, it does have like an 8-foot drop, which is okay for upper and lower basement, right? The first floor and then a basement exposed. But a lot of people want a flat backyard or some sort of backyard, and I just want to make sure you're aware that
I talked to
if it's approved, that you'd have to come back and try to get a variance or something to manipulate any of the soil or grading in the back of the house.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to make sure
Sure.
you're aware that.
Yeah, if that's the case. But I think after talking to the architect, they would do a subwall where the garage and everything is.
Right, so you just have to meet height requirements, the city's height requirements.
Okay.
So, but we can work with that.
Okay, great.
All right, just want to make sure you're aware that
Yeah.
it's going to slow.
Yeah, you're not going to have a flat backyard.
No.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, you could go ahead and take a seat, and I'll open the floor for public comment. In doing so, anyone who wishes to speak, as we discussed earlier, you know what, I missed the public comment. You need to fill out a yellow public comment card if you wish to speak in favor or in opposition. What I'll do is we'll open the floor first for anyone here to speak in opposition, and there'll be a combined total of 10 minutes to speak in opposition. And then we'll open the floor for anyone here that wishes to speak in favor for the same 10-minute limit in total. So is there anyone here for public comment on this case who wishes to speak in opposition? Is there anyone here that wishes to speak in favor? If you would please announce your name and address for the record.
Yes, Peter Oswald, and I reside at 130 Gladwin Ridge Drive, and I'm also an officer of the Homeowners Association for Gladwin. And I'm just expressing my approval for this variance, as long as the septic is constructed in an efficient manner per standards with either Fulton County or the town sanitarian. That's my only concern. All right?
Thank you. Is there anyone else here that wishes to speak in favor? Okay, with that, hearing and seeing no interest in further public comment, I'll close the public comment portion and open the floor for any questions of I'll give the applicant a chance to speak in a minute. In terms of what was brought up in terms of this public comment, can the city architect speak to the guidelines in terms of septic?
Yeah, all the septic would be filed and approved by the county. So the county would look at this and would review it. So we defer all comments to the county. They have to bring us back a county approval.
And that's the health department?
And that's the county health department, yeah. So they do look at each one of these and make sure that they're all set correctly. Any water drainage off the roof, we can put into flow wells and things like that to protect the stream and the erosion from impervious kind of areas.
Okay. So moving on then to our agenda here, there's an opportunity, Mr. Gibson, if you wanted to make a closing comment or any rebuttal for tonight before we move into session and close public comment.
I'll make it very brief, but just again, I want to reiterate anything I need to do to make the process better. And again, what you were saying before, if there needs to be any other kind of application, a wall, I know sometimes you get in a building a house, things can happen. I would definitely come in before we do anything. But then again, whatever, you guys see feasible that I need to do, I'm more than happy to do it. Thank you for your time.
Before you walk away, and we're going to ask some questions for staff as well. There were 4 conditions that staff recommended, and just wanted to review those again for the record. One recommended condition that we're considering is a planting plan for any disturbance that may happen, approved by the city arborist. There'll be provide a mitigation plan for runoff caused by the house. Approval per the site plans that you provided, and final review and approval by the city architect for the plans on the house. Do you have any concerns with those conditions, those recommended conditions?
Yeah, that should all be workable.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions for the applicant or for staff?
So do you have, I think you touched a little bit on the mitigation plan. Did you have any other thoughts to add to that, or had you already started working on a mitigation plan?
You mean, when you say the plans for the home?
No, the mitigation plan for the runoff caused by the house.
I haven't really embarked on anything yet. We're just trying to see if we can get this, if it's able. But whatever it is, as I was saying before, and that's kind of why I came back up. If there's anything like that, what you're mentioning, I'm more than happy to, be compliant in anything that needs to be done to make sure there's no problem.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
I had one question for staff and the city attorney, and that's regarding the recommended condition to approve this application according to the per the site plan. In this case, it's a footprint. It's not the actual plan or design of the house. So is there any recommendations that the city attorney might have in terms of language that would make this enforceable?
Well, I don't know that we would typically impose a floor plan requirement on a house based on a setback requirement. So that doesn't seem unusual, and I don't have any concerns. Is it just being a footprint? That's fine. If you set a condition that it must comply with the plan, any deviation from this plan would require a modification, zoning condition modification, If the applicant's comfortable, he can meet this drawing, then that shouldn't be a problem. If there's any provision that you can describe it, all of everything depicted except everything's depicted in addition. I'd like to add, you can take away from or add to this drawing, or exactly as shown as you see fit.
Or encroachment not to exceed?
Effectively, that's what a variance would be.
But in this case, if we stated this site plan, again, it's a footprint, it's a shell, it's not necessarily the actual house plan. If we went forward with this in concept, not to exceed the encroachment as noted on this site plan.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
Okay.
Be limited
Yes.
to what this footprint is.
Yeah.
They can't go outside of the footprint.
So if it's less than,
I
it's not
understand.
like they
Yes.
need a
Yes.
modification.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what I
Yes.
was concerned with.
Yes.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, just so you know, he's not going to be permitted to do any grading in that 50-foot buffer, so he's going to have to work with the existing slope and grades when he designs it.
Right.
He's not going to be allowed to do any manipulation, any site manipulation within the 50-foot.
Did it say that in there anywhere? Didn't see that.
That's the.
That's the-
Per code.
That would be just standard code, so just making sure the applicant's aware that can't do any manipulation of site in that 50.
And that's also his reserve, so that's potentially never even an issue, right?
Yeah, where he's showing the reserve
That's on the
is
75.
within the setback area. That's to the left of the photo. Well,
Right, but
depends on how you look at it.
that could potentially never be, it could be a non-issue altogether.
That could be that's not something that would be disturbed now. That would be like way in the future. If something was to happen, the county does require that you show where your proposed reserve leaching field would be, just so that you know that it works with the soils and that you have room for it. But it's not something that I think would be disturbed now.
Would you feel it's necessary, given the plan that's been presented, to have a condition to put some sort of fencing to limit encroachment into the 50-foot during construction?
We have done that before.
Is that reasonable here?
Oh, I think it's absolutely reasonable because he's very close to the 50-foot.
And what sort of fencing would be normally expected or reasonable here? Or leave it to,
I think before we've done like a temporary chain link fence. He has to do silt fence and erosion control and all of that, but I think in the past, we've requested that additional fencing.
okay. Are there any other questions for staff or the applicant? None? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make a note for the record that public comment is closed and the floor is open for a motion and a second. I'd like to make a motion to approve V18-009 with the following conditions. Planting plan to be approved by the city arborist. Provide a mitigation plan for runoff caused by the house in the 75-foot impervious setback. Approval per the site plan dated August 27th, 2018 by E303 Engineering for encroachment not to exceed. Condition number 4, the city architect shall review and approve the plans for the house. Item number 5, protect encroachment during construction along the 50-foot stream buffer with temporary chain link fence. That's it.
Second.
I have that motion and a second, which leads us to discussion. Is there discussion? I have a couple points that I wanted to raise. It's pertaining to the conditions of which were evaluating this case. And what we heard last month and this month, there were some concerns regarding the streams and the neighbors, and the impact of the septic into those streams, impact of the house and the runoff into those streams. And some of the mitigation that was referenced in the conditions is to address those concerns. The applicant has also sought alternatives in working with the city staff and architect in reducing the size of and footprint of the home and reducing the amount of impact into the 75-foot buffer. So I feel that this applicant has worked to mitigate and fall within our guidelines for consideration. Any further discussion?
I'd like to add on to what the chairman said. Really, the applicants worked extensively with the city staff and listening to our feedback and comments from the previous meeting to address a lot of the concerns that were out there that were both raised by the public as well as raised by the board.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor with the 5 stated conditions for V18-009, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? This motion passed unanimous. Mr. Gibson, thanks for working with the staff. Continue to do so, and good luck with your project.
The bylaws call for a process which has those in favor speak before those in opposition. If
in terms of public comment?
yeah,
Do they?
Well, in
Does
terms
it?
of during the public hearing for each one.
Got it. I'll make a note of that. Favor before opposition.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to the next item on our agenda for this evening is V18-010, 640 Glen National Drive. Would staff please present?
Yes. Yes, sir. This is case V1810. The site is a 1.02 acre lot located in the Providence at Atlanta National Subdivision owned by Burnt and Celine Hoboy. Hope I got that right. It is zoned CUP and is located in the rural Milton overlay. A single-family house and pool are located on the site, and at the back of the pool is a 9-foot-tall modular block retaining wall, which is in danger of failing. Section 64-2403A3F states that no single retaining wall shall exceed 6 feet in height at any point. Since the Hoboys proposed to rebuild a 9-foot retaining wall in the same location as the existing, a variance is required. The DRB had no issues when this was presented to them. Let's see, the arborist stated that there was really nowhere else to move the wall without causing more disturbance, and he noted that there's a tree adjacent to the wall that has been acclimated to its location in terms of the roots, and moving this wall would cause that tree to be removed. The other staff had no comments. Standards for consideration were read earlier, and I will refer to the letter of appeal for the applicant's response. The current 9-foot wall is damaged and perilous risk of collapsing. This wall retains the deck area, swimming pool, and accompanying landscaping, which could collapse as well. The deck area is immediately adjacent to the house. A 6-foot wall would be well below the level of the house, pool deck, and accompanying landscaping, and would therefore be ineffective. Theoretically, one could construct a 2-set retaining wall in the stair-step method to meet this ordinance. However, on this site, this is not practical for 3 reasons. 1, there are 2 old, beautiful maple trees that would need to be removed, and 2, the septic field would be significantly impacted and would likely need to be removed from its current location. And 3, there's a natural gully behind the big maple that would, if it were encroached upon, would render this approach nearly impossible. Our insurance company has informed us that they cannot and will not renew our policy if this wall is not fixed. Therefore, the home becomes uninsurable in January if this work is not done. The property faces a wooded lot, and we believe this will not be in conflict with Section 64-2402 to allow for the review of retaining walls of a size that may impact surrounding buildings, land, and uses. It would not impact surrounding buildings, lands, or uses, as the wall has been in place since the original construction and would simply be a replacement of the currently existing structure. And staff's response is as follows. The intent of the ordinance is to lessen the impact of a large retaining wall on abutting properties and the public. The 9-foot wall is already existing, so allowing a replacement in the same location would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. The wall is currently holding up the family swimming pool and pool deck. Since it's in danger of collapsing, it needs to be replaced. The ordinance allows a maximum 6-foot tall wall, but this will not work structurally with the pool and the pool deck. Terracing the replacement wall would require the destruction of a large maple tree, which is grown adjacent to the wall. The new wall will be the same height and will be in the same location as the existing. The materials are the same. No trees will be removed in the construction of the wall. Therefore, there should be no detriment to the public good or surrounding property. By replacing a failing wall and one that matches the existing, the public safety, health, and welfare are secured and substantial justice will be done. Should the board choose to approve this application, staff recommends the following conditions. Approval per the site plan dated 7/17/18 by Gaskins, and staff recommends approval with that condition of this request.
Are there any questions for staff? I had one question for the city architect. In reviewing the plans that were submitted, does the city offer guidance, or are there guidelines regarding the backfill and mitigation to runoff from the pool deck for this wall, or is that an engineering? Do they require engineering, I should say?
Any wall, any retaining wall that's above 4 feet in height has to be an engineered wall. So they'd have to bring in engineered plans for the wall. That would show the drainage, and because hydrostatic pressure is the reason why the old one is failing. What happens is the water goes down, builds up behind the wall, and it's tremendous, hydrostatic pressure. It's like it's like hydraulics. It just pushes it down. It's exponential on the force. So we will be looking at a 9-foot wall to make sure that that doesn't happen again.
So what they've provided a plan, which looks like it's from Engineered Earth Solutions, is the plans that were at least provided to us. Does that meet the requirements for this type of a wall in the height of 9 foot?
Yeah, I haven't reviewed this plan yet.
It would have to go through that kind of review?
It would have to go through that review. We do look at it structurally to make sure that it's structural and that there's a drainage component to it.
Okay.
But I won't do that until it's approved.
Okay. That was my...
So this
Main
particular
concern.
one was the pool. The 9-foot wall is really holding up the pool deck. And then below that, on the bottom part of the wall, they put the septic system. So there was no room to really tier it. We did look at some options here to see if we could meet the intent of the ordinance as it's been written with the 6-foot height and then tiered. But in this particular case, it would be over the septic system.
Okay. Any other questions for staff before we ask the applicant to present? Since you're here and ready, if you would please just state your name and address and feel free to share more about your project.
Thank you, Chairman, and the board. I appreciate you having me here tonight. My name is Celine Hoboy. I live at 640 Glen National Drive, the property for the review of this committee before you. As was stated, the wall is failing at this point. And we are actually proposing to put in a wall that is pre-manufactured, pre-engineered, and is a large precast blocks that will be stronger than the current cinder blocks that are there. So it'll actually be a prefabricated wall. I do have additional information here for that wall if the committee would like to have them submitted, or if you wanted me to put them on to be viewed. But so it does actually structurally improve the integrity of the wall that exists today. And we would request that the committee consider approval considering the conditions we're in.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
I've got a question. How are you guys going to be accessing the site?
We have a driveway that then comes down around the side of the house, and there's fences that will be brought down, and then they'll be able to bring a bobcat. And that's one of the benefits to this prefabbed material, is that it's actually much more manipulable and able to be in tight spaces with a smaller cat.
And I'll just note for the public's benefit, those that are here and are watching online, that this 9-foot wall would continue to have a fence at the top of the wall.
Correct.
As noted from this plan.
Yes, it will be, the fence is required due to the pool and will be replaced once the structure is in place.
Okay. Any other questions before we open for public comment?
Are you planning on planting anything at the base of the wall to try and hide the height of it?
To hide the height of the wall?
Well, yeah, basically like a bush or shrubs or anything at the bottom to not let the 3 foot that you're over the 6 foot allowed. I mean, is that allowable, Bob?
The challenge with that would be that the septic system is right there, so we have to be careful about planting much in that area. I will make a note that behind us is undeveloped property. I believe it's part of the farm and the wooded area behind the farm that is off of Doris Road. So there is nobody behind us that can see our wall, or actually to either side.
It's pretty heavily wooded behind the property. Okay, yes, Bob?
The color and finish of the wall?
I did bring some samples that we anticipate. Again, it's a prefabricated material. I'm happy to, I don't know, do you guys have the screen here that can project?
Or you could just hand it out. It might be faster.
You can just hand it to the architect.
Sure. It's slightly different in the way that it looks than the actual built wall today. It looks more like stone.
Yeah.
Make sure that. I will add that it's not recommended to put trees, but if you wanted to put some shrubs on the base of the wall, that really wouldn't interfere with the septic if the board chooses to address that concern. You could put some bushes on the bottom, even if they go up 2-3 feet. I mean, they're just small bushes. It would make the wall appear to be shorter in height and give it some sort of buffer on the wall.
Does she need our approval for that?
Well, if we made it a condition to put it on, if the board says, look, we'll allow the 9 foot, but plant some shrubs on the bottom.
That she would be allowed to? Is that what you're saying? Or
I'm saying
the
that
condition that,
you make it a condition
We
to
could
do
make
it,
it a
that you
condition.
could
That
do
she
it, and
needs
it wouldn't impact the septic. It's not like we're asking for trees.
yeah.
On the trees are not really recommended and adjacent to a septic, but the bushes would be
We're
small.
looking at it over here. It seems
this
very
is-
wooded behind there.
It's very wooded behind us, and as you can see, this is what's currently in the packet that you have, where there's a small area that we had left so that, any runoff could be absorbed, and then right about here is where the fencing is for the wooded part of the lot, and then it goes into the woods. So there's nobody behind us, and our adjacent neighbors on either side cannot see the wall.
Would you want to plant trees back there?
I'd prefer
or
not
shrubs
to,
or
just so
something?
that we could maintain the ability for the runoff to be, because it's not a very large septic area to begin with.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions before I open for public comment? You can go ahead and have a seat. We'll have you
Thank you.
for closing comments. So as I stated earlier, if we'll open the floor for public comment. If you're here to speak in favor or in opposition to this case, please fill out a yellow card. And as the city attorney has noted, we'll start with a 10-minute window for anyone here to speak in favor, followed by a 10-minute window for the public to speak against this application. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor? Is there anyone here wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no interest in public comment, would note that you have an opportunity to make a closing statement or any rebuttals from anything you've heard tonight and we'll also have an opportunity to ask you some additional questions if necessary.
I would ask that the board approve this plan, since it is a replacement in kind, if not an improvement to the current wall. And considering our insurance circumstances, we'd like to get started on this as soon as possible. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the applicant or for staff? Okay, we can go ahead and take a seat.
Thank you.
I'll make note for the record that the public comment and public comment portion of this meeting is closed, and I'll open the floor for a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve V 18-010640 Glen National Drive with the following condition: approval per the site plan dated 7/17/2018 by Gaskins Engineering.
I'll second that. Is there any discussion? I would just note in seconding this, the conditions that we have in order to review these variances is very clear. The applicant is dealing with an existing situation and has taken efforts to secure professional assistance and engineering support in building an appropriate replacement wall that's both safe and secure, and would not be a substantial detriment as it is an existing wall that faces a very wooded area. Any other discussion? All those in favor of approval per the site plan dated 7/17/2018 by Gaskins Engineering, that's a condition, I should say, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This motion passed unanimous. Good luck with your project, and please stay in touch with the staff.
Yes, will do. Thank you very much.
All right. The next item on our agenda is V18-011 15970 Thompson Road. Would staff please present?
Yes, sir. And what's this here? It's pretty straightforward. I do have some larger site plans if anybody's interested.
Yeah, I would like to see them.
Share. Okay. This is case V18, 11.
Yeah, thanks.
The site is a 1.688 acre lot located on Thompson Road. It is zoned AG1 and is located in the Bill Milton overlay. The lot contains a one-story house and a metal accessory building. There is an existing wood deck that runs the length of the back of the house. The deck on the north side of the house encroaches into the side setback by 2.5 feet. The owners, Ronald and Ashley Cates, propose to extend the wood deck 5 feet 11 inches towards the rear of the property, which would be east. This new structure will encroach approximately 3.5 feet into the side setback. When completed, the entire deck structure will be covered by a roof. Section 64, 416A1 states that the setback for a minimum side yard adjacent to an interior line is 25 feet. Since the proposed deck will encroach 3.5 feet into the setback, leaving 21.5 feet, a variance is required. The DRB suggested that the applicants get a letter of support from the neighbors. The staff had no comments concerning this case. We will refer to the letter of appeal for the applicant's response to the standards for consideration. Let me get another copy. So A, relief if granted would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance due to the fact that the existing structure currently encroaches the setback and the proposed project is an extension of the existing conditions. B, the encroachment is an existing condition that was not caused by the current property owner and is therefore an exceptional situation. C, relief if granted would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. And D, relief if granted would not affect the public's health, safety, and welfare. The staff response is as follows. Since the existing deck already extends 2.5 feet into the setback, an additional foot would be minimal. This should not offend the intent of maintaining an adequate distance between structures. Because of the angle of the deck, avoiding the encroachment would require removal of part of the existing deck. This exceptional situation was present when the current property owners purchased the property. The average eye would not be aware of the 3.5-foot encroachment, especially since the deck already encroaches, so no detriment should come to the public or surrounding properties. The approval of this variance will allow substantial justice to be done. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. Approval per the site plan dated 7/25/18 by SG Architect, and staff recommends approval of the conditions of this request.
Are there any questions for staff? I had one question, and it's regarding the one-story metal accessory structure or building. I'm not sure what it's labeled. That looks to encroach into the side yard, but that's not part of this variance.
Correct.
Can you explain that?
I mean, they have the option of coming in later to correct that. It's existing, so as long as they don't try to alter it, we're not going to force them to do anything with it right now, but hopefully, we have another case later on tonight where applicant is coming in just to do that, just to clean it up.
Okay.
What's the age of that one-story metal structure? Was it? Do you have any idea?
I think I looked it up, but I don't remember off the top of my head. The applicant, I'm sure, can tell you.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Okay. Would the applicant please come forward and share more about your application? Please state your name and address for the record.
Sure. Good evening, Board. My name is Stephen Giampetro. I'm the architect representing the owners, Ron and Andrea Cates. And basically, what was explained is very accurate. There's an existing deck structure with a roof structure above. It's not screened, and it appears that that existing structure is encroaching 2.5 feet into the side setback. The depth of the deck is a bit narrow, and the owners can't use it as they would like to with furniture and such, so they're looking to expand it about 6 feet. So the new encroachment would be about 3.5 feet. So we're enlarging the encroachment by about 12 inches.
What is the existing depth and what are you moving it to?
The existing depth is 9 foot 3 inches. And the new depth will be 15 feet 4 inches.
Okay.
But the old one's not covered, and the new one, you're going to uncover the entire thing now, correct?
No, the existing one is covered.
Oh, it's also covered?
Yes, and we're going to extend the roof and cover the addition part
Gotcha.
as well.
Okay.
And I would also like to explain that there is no neighboring building next door. It's basically farmland. So there's really no concern about, being too close to the neighbor and such.
I believe one of the statements from an earlier meeting, DRB, recommended a letter of support from the neighbor. Is that what you're trying to explain, is there is no neighbor physically there?
No, there is a neighbor there. And at that location next to where we want to extend the deck, the neighbor has a lot of goats and such, and they just kind of roam the land. And the home is maybe like 300 feet back from there. And we did provide a letter of support from that neighbor.
So the staff has that letter of support?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome.
Okay. And you heard some discussion regarding the existing metal building. You may or may not be in a good position to explain that, but I'll ask the question. Can you tell us the situation with the existing metal building, which is not part of this variance request?
Right. Yes, there is an existing metal building, and it does appear to be encroaching into that side setback. The owners believe that the building may have been built in the 60s or 70s. It's been there for a very long time.
And that's the same with the shed? There's also a shed at the back, is that correct? It looks like that on the plan.
I'm not quite sure what that is.
I thought one of the pictures had it on there.
Okay. Any other question? Yes, Bob.
Okay, just a couple of questions for the applicant. I guess the architect, you're the architect?
Yes.
The fireplace that you're showing is existing? Or you're putting a new fireplace there?
The fireplace is proposed.
Is proposed. It's a gas fireplace?
Yes. But there's been some discussion to eliminate that feature, so that may not happen.
Okay, because I'm not seeing it pierce the roof, so I'm just wondering how you're going to vent that out and whatnot. You're showing that, and it's a stone, it's going to be sitting. So the other question I had was, on the existing rear elevation, the existing has several intermediate columns.
Mm-hmm.
And now with the new one, you're proposing just a straight 21-foot span? Am I looking at that right? Almost 20.
Yes, that's correct.
22-foot span?
Yeah, that is correct.
No interim columns in there? You're not gonna
No,
put any intermediate columns?
I always work with a structural engineer, so these on these drawings, the structural engineer's information will be there, and the beam will be designed properly.
Okay, so you're keeping the base columns, you're adding new base columns, but no intermediate columns.
Right.
And what's the roof pitch on there?
The roof pitch will be between 2 and 4 on 12.
And it will be a shingle roof? Shingle roofs aren't really recommended for a pitch that low. Normally you would do a metal roof or something, so if we're gonna have something that steps out that far, either he reverse gables it or he puts some sort of metal roof or something that would.
Proposing
withstand.
metal roof?
No, I gave instruction to provide a low slope roofing product to meet that condition.
Yeah, and the problem with that is it'd have to be like a rolled roof or something that wouldn't look residential. I mean, normally on we do have porches that come out that are less than 3 to 1, and they just use metal, standing seam metal, and they can go to it as low as a 2 to 12. I mean, when you're starting to get into shingles, it's not really recommended.
I think you mentioned 2 options, the metal seam roof and what was the other one?
Or some sort of reverse gable where
Reverse gable.
he kind of doesn't have like a shed roof. It's more of a reverse gable roof that would kind of go back into the roof so you get the proper pitch. It'd be a little bit more money, but.
Yeah, we do have another option to pull the roof line up to a different location, which would be up here, and we'll gain more pitch.
Yeah.
So we did speak with the contractor about that.
Yep.
And he said we could obtain possibly a 4 on 12.
Yeah, something like that I think would be much more desirable, to pull it back up to the ridge line, the existing ridge, take it from there and just bring it all the way down. And then at least he'd have a proper pitch on that.
So if they did that, then would you be fine with the other roofing material that they've?
That would be, if it's a 4 on 12. It's not totally desirable in Milton, but a 4 on 12 would work with a shingle roof.
So is there, I guess, a design number or something that we can refer to on what you've got right there as far as a different option?
I mean, that's an option that we discussed in the field. I would have to alter the drawings to indicate that new design, which is not a problem.
So,
Another way to address that is condition according to city architect review,
It'd be fine.
which gives
I'll make sure that
you guys an opportunity to work together.
Yeah, we'll
during
make
that-
sure that it works structurally and
That works for you?
aesthetically, and it looks great.
Any other questions for the applicant? Bob, you were on the mic. You were the last one asking questions.
No, I'm fine.
so this would remain the same then right here, right? Just stay the same,
Yeah, add a condition. Second condition.
which would be this?
Okay, if there's no additional questions, you can have a seat, and I'll open for public comment.
Thank you.
And we'll give you an opportunity to speak at the close with any rebuttal or closing comments. I will open the floor for public comment. If you're here to speak in favor or against, please remember to fill out a yellow public comment card. We'll start with a 10-minute window for those here interested to speak in favor of this application, followed by a 10-minute window for those in opposition. Is there anyone here interested in offering public comment in favor of this application? Anyone here to speak in opposition to this application? Hearing and seeing no public comment, I'll offer you an opportunity to make a rebuttal or closing comment before we ask final questions and move into session.
I would just like to reiterate that we would be happy to alter the pitch of the roof to meet the recommendations by the board and go from there.
That was a decision made in the field. All right. Duly noted. Any other comments?
No.
Any questions for the applicant or for staff?
I've got a question for the applicant. The shed that's in the back, is that actively being used, do you know? The structure that's outside of the setback?
The large building that's on the
smaller one.
site?
No, the smaller one is labeled shed.
I really don't think that that's there. I haven't seen it. But I can't say for sure.
Okay.
It's not there. The homeowner's here.
Would you mind coming up and just state your name and address, and for the record, just let the board know officially that you're stating it's not there?
Good evening. My name is Ron Cates. I'm the owner of the property. I'm not sure what you're looking at on a survey, but the only thing that is currently there is the metal building, which I believe was built in 1970, before City of Milton and Fulton County, but there is no other. No, that structure, there's nothing there. That's all grass. I mean, it's got a 4-board fence around it, and this building, that metal building, kind of looks like the house, because I stripped the house and right down to the studs and redid the house. It had all 8-foot ceilings in it, pushed everything up, made the garage, the outbuilding, look like the house. So that's, we're just trying to finish what we started 9 years ago.
Okay.
So, and we share the fence with the people to our left that's affected by it. And that used to be just all woods. And they came up and bought the property and converted into, I think they got like 30 sheep or something. And so we're trying to orientate our deck to our property, because right now it goes up their driveway and we see all the sheep. So we're just trying to turn. So, but that building is not there. Okay?
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, we can go ahead and have a seat.
Okay, thank you.
Make a note for the record that public comment is closed, and I'll open the floor for a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve V18-011, 15970 Thompson Road on the following conditions. Approval per the site plan dated July 25th, 2018 by SG Architect, and also approval of design by the city architect.
I'll second. Open for discussion. I'd make note in terms of my seconding that the primary variance considerations here, spirit and intent of the ordinance is being met here, and there's not intrusion to a neighbor. The neighbor has in fact expressed support for this project. Existing structures in place, minor expansion for an additional 1 foot of encroachment, and wouldn't cause detriment to the public good or surrounding properties, and it doesn't appear to be any public safety, health, or welfare impact for this project. Any other discussion? I think it's important to note the additional condition, leaving it to the city architect and the applicant to work out final design and regarding the roof pitch. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion passed unanimous with the 2 noted conditions. Good luck with your project. Please stay in touch with the city staff, especially the city architect.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our next item on the agenda. It's V18-012, 16080 Freemanville Road. Would staff please present?
So I think you have a blow up of the area. the subject area in your packets, and then the next page is a small plat, and it's kind of hard to see the highlighting, so, yeah. I'll let you have that for your reference. So this is case V1812. The site is a 1.21 acre lot located on Freemanville Road. It is zoned AG1 and is located in the rural Milton overlay. The property includes a 1.556 square foot single-family home and a two-car freestanding garage located to the left in front of the home. Both structures were existing where the current property owners purchased the property in 2018. Section 64-416C1 states that the minimum side yard adjacent to the interior property lines is 25 feet. No structures are to be built in this area. Section 64-416-1 states that accessory structures may be located in rear or side yards, but shall not be located within a minimum yard. Since Mr. Poulin purchased the property with an existing garage that encroaches into the side setback and is located in the front yard, a two-part variance is required. The DRB had no issues with this petition, as did staff. And we will refer to the applicant's letter for their response to the standards for consideration. Special considerations and circumstances which are peculiar to the structure involved on the property is number one, the garage was built 20 feet from the side setback, and it should be 25. The garage was built before the home and is in front of the home, and they are not attached. I do not feel that relief, if granted, would offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance, as it is not visible from the road, and the bordering property is agreeable to the variance. The structure or buildings involved in the property do not result from my actions as it was constructed in 1974. I do not feel that granting this variance will confer or bestow on me any special privileges that would otherwise be denied by the zoning ordinance to other structures or buildings in the same zoning district as the building in question, and in question is not visible to any property owners. Staff's response is as follows. The intent of the ordinance is to provide a standard minimum distance between structures and minimize the impact of the structures on the street. The structure sits approximately 650 feet from the street, encroaches 5 feet into the side yard, and has been in its current location for years. The lot adjacent to the setback is currently undeveloped, and anyone that wished to build on this neighboring lot in the future would be aware of the garage. The structures were in place when the lot was purchased by Mr. Poulin, and this situation was not created by him. Trees and other structures block the view of the garage from the street. The side yard encroachment is minimal, and there is extensive vegetation on the adjacent lot that can be used for screening if the owners decide to build in the future. Allowing the garage to remain in its current location will not harm public safety, health, or welfare, and substantial justice will be done for the homeowner. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions, and that's the footprint of the garage shall not be enlarged. Staff recommends approval with conditions of this request.
Are there any questions for staff? Just out of curiosity, these are existing structures. How did this come before us?
How did it come? Why is it here? They purchased the property and they just wanted to clean it up.
Okay, so there's proactivity on behalf of the applicant.
Yes. Yeah, we didn't go out and measure anything and cite them or anything like that. They just took it upon themselves.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff before we ask the applicant to come forward? The floor is yours. Please state your name and address for the record.
Michael Poulin, 16080 Freemanville Road. I think your staff did an excellent job discussing the issues. We purchased a house in January, and spent the last 6 months just cleaning up the whole property, noticed the setback issue, so I came and wanted to clean it up, basically.
Okay. Do you have any concerns with the,
Well, the only thing I wanted to add was, on the notice, it said there was 49 feet of frontage. We don't have any frontage, so we have a small easement for our driveway, but you can't see the house from the street.
You do have front road frontage.
because of the easement, you have frontage.
Right, about 20 feet, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
It's a flag lot,
Yeah.
is what they call it, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any concerns with the condition that was recommended, which is to restrict from any enlargement of the footprint?
Yeah, no, we have no plans on, we just wanted to bring it up to code. That was basically what we wanted to do.
Okay.
Just, there's no dimensions, just how many cars is the existing garage?
It's a two-car.
Just for the record.
Are there any questions for the applicant or staff? I'm just going to have you stay there for a minute while I'll open the floor for public comment. Sure. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Seeing and hearing none, Mr. Poulin, you have an opportunity for a closing statement before we would render our decisions.
Yeah, I was just would ask for relief in this situation, just so that we can get the property correct. So there's nothing else comes up in the future. I spoke to the neighbor and he provided an email. He has no problem with it. Can't see it. They probably will build a home on that adjacent lot at some point, but it's going to be way to the front. And again, there would be no visual from their location. And if you look at the aerial, there is another shed. I just bring that up because the previous case had that same issue. That's been removed. That was one of the first things we did. It was a small shed that was literally sitting on the property line. And we removed that immediately.
On the rear of the property line?
Yeah, if you look at Google, you can see it.
That's where I'm looking at.
Yeah, it's gone now. We removed it.
Okay. Okay, any final questions for the applicant or for staff? Thank you for adding the point about the letter of support from your neighbor.
Sure.
Okay, you can have a seat. I'll make a note that the public comment is closed, and I'll open the floor for a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion. To approve V18-012-16080 Freemanville Road with approval on conditions of this request, and that the footprint of the garage shall not be enlarged.
I'll second. Floor is open for discussion. For one, I commend the applicant for coming forward with this proactively and seeking support from the adjacent neighbor. He's met the conditions that we have in determining a primary variance request. All four of those conditions have clearly met. Any further discussion? All those in favor with the one condition to limit the footprint of the existing garage shall not be enlarged. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passed unanimous. Congratulations and good luck. Thank you for joining us here in Milton and taking proactive steps. Next item on our agenda would be item number 6, consideration of appeals and secondary variances.
I have none.
I have none. Item number 7 was old business.
Recall any.
We did have one piece of old business, and that was related to the training session. In looking at the caseload for October and maybe even extending out into November, do you have a recommendation of where we may have a lighter evening, not to jinx us?
We don't have a large caseload for October, but we have one that's going to be I don't want to say controversial, but there's going to be some,
Complicated.
yeah, some debate on that one.
In November,
November, it's not, I don't have anything.
if you remember, we changed the November date, I believe, to avoid the Thanksgiving holidays and the school closures. So if we looked out that far, for a training session, first of all, is the city attorney available?
As far as I know.
I believe we moved it to November 13th.
I'd like to go on record, I will not be here. My mom's having her hip replaced, and so I need to travel to Cincinnati and
Okay.
assist her.
And I have a similar conflict in October. Although I don't feel entirely obligated to be here. I've been on the board for going on 11 years. But
You don't
I'm
think
not
I have
above
a
it
few
either.
new tricks up?
No, I'm not above it either. So if it's the pleasure of this board, and we do have some new.
I am confident that the bulk of the presentation would be a reiteration of basic concepts, which you would have heard in the past, Mr. Chairman. Yes.
So if October works better, and it works for the city attorney, you want to look at meeting at 6 o'clock for a training session, followed by a regular scheduled meeting at 7 p.m. Does that work for this board? So I don't have to go through a formal motion, do I, for that?
No, you'll just.
So we'll look
Just
at
start new business.
October 16th, 6 p.m. for a training session, which is already, a lot of the material has already been prepared. We tried to do this earlier. And then a regular meeting at 7 p.m.
And then you said that the November.
Is actually on November
Yay.
13th.
Okay.
November 13th.
Okay, 13th.
And just for the sake of saying, if Mr. Kurt and Mr. Sisson, I don't believe either one of them would have participated if there's any.
They would be new
impact,
trainees.
Something to make sure if they're going to be there, just a consideration if we were trying to capture everybody in the same session.
I will make a note to confirm with both of them and consider that the meeting unless you hear otherwise from me.
I will go forward as if that's the meeting.
Okay?
And I do
And if
want
there's
to-
any special topics that any of you care to have the city attorney or the city staff address in that training session, please get those to Cody so that he can aggregate them.
And I do want to remind the board that the training would be taped. We'll set Granicus to make sure that it's fully taped.
Should be advertised in as well.
And it will be advertised and taped. And so if there's somebody who's not here and you do want to see it, you're welcome to always view it. You can just go to the city website and view the training.
Okay? Any other old business? New business?
Based on the comments, Mr. Chairman, regarding the procedures that it sounded like the city manager was interested in implementing, I believe it may be appropriate to address potential revisions to this board's bylaws. I don't know if that is something that would require the city manager's approval to engage in that activity. I'm certainly happy to engage in it. Perhaps a consideration for the next month to discuss any additional changes that anyone may have thought of.
And yeah,
that may be you.
The cleanup opportunity is what you're saying.
Yeah. And any other issues that you'd like to see addressed in bylaws, and that would include staff and administration as well. So what I would suggest is that we put it on the agenda for the next meeting as either in a separate agenda item or as old business, a discussion of potential changes to the bylaws. So we put them all together in one new draft.
So in our bylaws, Article 6, I'm reading, modification of bylaws. Except for those requirements regulated by the City of Milton Code of Ordinances, Any of these procedures may be modified by a majority vote of the Board of Zoning Appeals at any regular meeting, provided the amendment was submitted in writing at a previous meeting and that the notification contains a full statement of the proposed amendment. Any proposed amendment must include existing and proposed texts, must include a statement of the purpose and intended effect of the proposed change, must be held for 14 days before it is presented to the Board of Zoning Appeals for action. So based on that, should I draft something and submit it?
What I would suggest we do, and we can do this a different way, but this is probably the cleanest step-by-step process, is to have consideration between now and the next meeting of any issues that you may be interested in having discussed. If there are none, I can come back with a draft that addresses the procedural change that was, and if the chair would like to forward that to me.
I'll forward that to you, yeah.
Yeah, I can do that. If there are any others, if there are significant ones, what I would suggest is that we discuss them at the next meeting, and I come back with a draft at the November meeting. If there aren't any major changes, then I can present a draft, which would then constitute the one meeting beforehand, and it could be voted on in November then.
Okay, that's fine. I'll forward you what I provided as a result of the city manager's request.
Right.
And you can look at how you want to.
Yeah, I think there may be a couple of cleanup items based on changes that have happened to the actual code since these were adopted in 2012.
And then should we put this as an agenda item then for our October meeting to discuss bylaw
yes.
changes?
And can we have copies of the bylaws sent to us
Sure.
prior to that meeting so that we can look it over? And
I will make a note.
thank you.
Yeah, mine's from 2009. Okay, then that'll work out perfect. I'll take action to forward that. If you make the adjustments, we can then discuss them in public next meeting and then look to adopt them in as early as November.
If there are no significant changes that need to be made, then we can move forward with the ones that I bring in October and vote in November.
Okay. Okay, any other new business?
I have none.
Jason, do you want to handle item number 9 on our agenda? Make a motion for,
To adjourn.
Dismissal?
I'll make a motion to adjourn and you can.
I'll second it.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Hi.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.